Hello, this is a first in a collection of observations based on experience gathered over 40 years as a psychiatrist and insight-oriented psychotherapist. I'm known as Dr. Dave, and this is a series of brief talks for those who wish to know and understand themselves better and deeper. You know, the psychological similarities from person to person are quite striking. And here are some ideas about giving and being given to. Let's set the stage by posing some questions. Are you a serial rescuer? People who give and take care of and fix other folks over a lifetime could be called serial rescuers or givers. Do family and friends sometimes shake their heads as though you're really naive? Do you yourself resentfully feel that you give too much or too often, and that you're used or victimized? Often people resolve to cease being so kind and available. Have you actually turned away from caring and generosity, or at least tried to? And if you tried that, were you then left feeling unfulfilled, still irritated, and now empty? So maybe giving is in your nature. Caring about others and performing acts of kindness seem especially out of vogue in our me-oriented culture. But possibly being a rescuer is quite acceptable and feasible if it's done with mindfulness and perspective. What are the problems arising from being a giver? The basic issue isn't actually the giving, it's quite the opposite. It's usually easier and more comfortable to give than to be given to. However, rare indeed is the person who is consciously aware of resisting being given to. Now, let's look at Scrooge, that character from Christmas Carol. He certainly wasn't a giver in the beginning of that story, was he? But from whom did he withhold? Actually, he was more miserly toward himself than toward others, not allowing himself to benefit from human interaction and to flourish. In other words, to be given to. Maybe some of the problem with giving has to do with being given to. Perhaps there's a beehive hiding in this process of giving. Some of us make a life of withholding from ourselves, avoiding anything so indulgent as chocolate or closeness. We prove over and over and over that we don't ever need to be taken care of or rescued. Being given to makes us feel too vulnerable, too far out on the proverbial limb. Giving is safer, but also, as maybe you know, it's a one-way street, and it's very frustrating. Now think about our mixed reaction to receiving compliments. We all desire respect, recognition, and being valued, but a simple, "Don't you look nice today," is often at least partially brushed aside. Sometimes we react with suspicion. What does he want? Or she gets paid to say that. Compliments are interpreted as not sincere, so that their potential positive impact can be blunted or even negated. But truth be told, we all relish being acknowledged and esteemed and connected. So why do we feel vulnerable in the face of compliments? Is it possible that we want this approbation so avidly that we anxiously sense that we're at risk? There are those of us who grew up deprived of feeling good about ourselves, so much so that we now feel that we need uplifting too much, or At least it feels that way. That limb that we're about to climb out on, feeling good about ourselves by genuinely accepting a compliment, for example, could be cut off, and that loss of short-lived self-esteem would really be painful. So, to avoid that pain or the prospect of painful loss, we make certain that we just don't do limbs. In other words, silently, we say, don't ever try to give to or care about me. Again, for some of us, the real problem, the core conflict, if you will, with giving is the difficulty with being given to. It feels as though we just give and give and give without anyone giving back. All givers, in fact, desire to be given to. Do we actually perceive our need to be accepted and cared about as being so deep and intense that we're desperately fearful of feeling good because the prize could be snatched away, leaving us exposed, devoid, and worse off than ever? There's another quite important, a really important point in here. We might also be afraid of seeing just how God-awfully needy we truly are. If we wholeheartedly accepted being cared for and loved, would that reveal to one and all, especially ourselves, how desperate we've been all along? Our mantra might be to never be seduced, and even the possibility of being, say, clingy. Now, many more ideas and some conclusions are to follow in subsequent monologues, especially about finding and allowing reciprocity in this giving process, and also in regard to romantic love, which certainly in terms of giving and getting is vulnerability in its most scary scenario. To indulge in intimacy surely is perilous business, as dread rejection always